Yeah, we're.
My sister was in Peru and
Okay, so everything's live right now.
can you hear us? She would find.
We're
that
just gonna
they would
log
just
on and
decide
make sure the
that-
sound is right and
You've
then,
been long enough. Yeah. So you could talk, because that's how we would talk on the
Yeah.
phone, but
you can hear, okay,
perfect.
perfect,
All right, let's start.
okay, perfect.
All right, thank you for coming. We're gonna start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. We are going to, just so people on TV know, conduct some interviews for a general contractor and some architectural and engineer services this morning. Good morning, come on in. We are going to start with Bennington Construction and interview them to see if they are a possibility for our general construction manager, general contractor. And with that being said, we have questions, and Jay, I'm wondering if you would be willing to ask the questions.
Could I interrupt? really quick?
Yes.
We need to approve the agenda.
Oh, thank you. Here we go.
Got to number 2.
Yeah, I got to number 2. I skipped 3. I don't like that number. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I
Thank you.
move that we approve the agenda.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that passes. Thank you. Now,
And then just one more note that
Yes.
each of our firms that we'll be talking with today will have a presentation at the beginning that 8 to 10 minutes.
Very
prior
good.
to any questions.
no, very good, perfect. And with that being said, are you good to ask the questions, Jay? Okay. Perfect. So, Bennington, we will turn the time over to you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for, number one, allowing us to submit a proposal, and then number 2, for shortlisting us to come and talk to you. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Got a history with the school district, and would certainly love to continue working for Bennington School District. But I'm Bryce Parker. I'm licensed construction manager with Bennington. I'm one of our new owners, and really want to make sure this time is as valuable as possible for you. So we can get into the meat of the questions and stuff. I think is important. We'll have a quick presentation to introduce ourselves and introduce the company a little bit. Bennington was incorporated in 1997, and it really was started, and the whole point of how they started the company was to be a construction management professional services firm, as opposed to kind of the old school general contracting. So throughout our history, we have done well over 100 public works projects now. The majority of those have been schools for 24 school districts now in the state of Idaho. You can kind of see the map there on where we worked, primarily in the Treasure Valley and the West Valley, but we've worked a little bit around the state as well. In our history, just been very fortunate. The construction management process lends itself just extremely well to school projects, and working with school districts is a very collaborative process, being able to be involved and to understand what you guys are trying to accomplish and help you achieve that. So.
Yeah.
Oh, and then I'm the newbie at the table with Bennington. I'm going in on my 19th year now.
Oh, well, there you
Everybody
go.
else has
Goodness.
been here longer. So.
So my name is Alan Moore. I do the pre-construction estimating side of Bennington. I'm also vice president. And I've been with Bennington, this is my 21st year now. So just wanted to kind of go through quick our roles, like you requested, just 8 to 10 minutes. So we wanted to go rather quickly here. As the pre-construction estimating side, I deal with the costs, as you can imagine. And it's been quite challenging over the past few years to predict costs and to keep up with what inflation's doing, what COVID did to us, all those things. But this is just a quick example of, we do takeoffs and quantities things, and this is a tool that we use that we can, between the owner, the design firm you pick, and ourselves, we can talk about, okay, hey, within this area of the school, we want to do this type of flooring, this type of whatever, and costs associated with it is where I tie in. So kind of just a quick little example there of, one of the programs we use that's a good tool to use as a team. And just basically, I do the estimates, put projects out to bid, present the numbers to you, and all those things, work hand in hand with the design team. Some of your questions that you had that you sent over to us, we'll get into a lot more detail on that. So I just will end it at that and turn it over to Shannon.
Shanna Donaldson, I've been with Littleton, I just hit 21 years in January, and I started around the time of Purple Sage being built, so I got to experience some of that initial Middleton stuff with you guys. Not me. But I'm a contract administrator, and I handle all the contract documentation and change documents, tracking. This is an example of a tracking log that we would use, and we get payment performance bonds and make sure everybody's in compliance with those, and sex offender registry, drug and alcohol free workplace, that kind of thing. So I just make sure everybody's in line. I also have a separate log for insurances, so we keep those, make sure they're on file for everybody, and payments don't get released until we have everything in order.
I'm Ryan Smith. I'm field superintendent. I've been Benetton for 25 years now. I'm the guy out in the field. I'm the guy that shows up in the dirt the first day, and I'm there the last day. So I take care of pretty much all the site organization, making sure that the site's safe, site's clean, things are efficient, subcontractors are doing what they're supposed to be doing, interfacing a lot with the neighbors, the entities within the highway districts, the permitting offices, inspectors, and everything like that. So every day's got something a little bit new to it, but it's been a good time. So I enjoy it.
Ryan has our boots on the ground.
This is one of his elementaries. I don't know, Ryan, if you want to explain, this is Amity Elementary.
Yep, so that one right there, that was it's a build down, it's a tear down and build. Amity Elementary, right there where that new building is, was their field, and then next to it is the concrete bunker building. And then on the other side of me is subdivisions. So we had to appease a lot of people in that regard, keep the school going, keep the neighborhood happy, keep trucks going, and just try and keep it organized, safe, and still moving forward at a pretty rapid pace. So it takes, a fair amount of every day making sure everything is happening like it's supposed to be. You can't really just sit there and lean back on cruise control or anything like that. You have to be very hands-on.
Yeah, I grew up there.
Did you go to school there?
No, I went to Lake Hazel, actually. We owned a ranch at between 5 Mile and Lake Hazel. But I grew up on those fields.
Yeah, and it's being very flexible too, because that particular building, as it went down, as soon as they got the dirt off the roof of it, they discovered that the entire roofing system was asbestos. So then it was.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
It changes everything in a moment's notice.
Mhm.
So.
Wow.
And there it is, all finished up.
So pretty much just flip-flop their play fields, and
Yeah.
they were able to stay in school. So come over at a summer break.
That is cool.
And yeah, I think with that, we just want to kind of introduce our roles and then open it up to the questions.
Okay.
You use as much time as possible for your questions.
All right, well, this is a lot easier than normal. Normally, we just kind of on the cuff ask questions. And I guess everybody has a copy of the questions. And all right. So first question, and have you guys, you've read these, you're familiar with them? So is how will you address requests from the school district that may not be prudent, practical, or manageable from the perspective of you as the construction manager?
Yeah, from day one, we'll be at the table with you and the design team as partners, and that's why we enjoy being able to be involved early on before we're just handed a set of plans that we need to go build is bringing our experience to the table and being able to drop on that and being able to bring things up and say, hey, we've run across this before. I've got a ton of experience with schools, specifically elementary schools. I mean, some of them have been, you go out and it's just a nice field, you go out and build a new school, but a lot of times you're dealing with situations where you've got partial demos or full demos or additions or renovations. And so with all of that experience just comes a lot of different scenarios that we run into. So, reviewing designs and a huge part of that is really understanding what you're trying to accomplish, and understanding the program that the school board and the patrons and everybody are on board with. And then as things go along and we're working with the design team, we can raise our hands and say, hey, we're not going to be shy about letting you know this is something, we're concerned about. And then feed you the information, whether it's cost related or if it's a lead time issue, whatever it may be. But just feed you the information so you can make informed decisions. That's the biggest piece of it. Moving along.
Yeah, and I think that question developed over, and I've been on this building committee for quite a while, and we had one of our biggest meetings. We had, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 people from the community there. And people are always throwing out ideas of, why does an elementary school have to cost so much? And they goes, why can't we just have a big metal building with a cement floor, and so we always have to come back with, no, this is the best value. This is kind of a minimum standard. And I guess this question kind of goes to that, because you're going to always see this pushback from the communities, like, how do we build it cheaper? And like, no, we have to have these, things and these minimum.
And that's what I was saying, I think really understanding, because from building in Notice and in Homedale and in the West Valley and Weiser and Fruitland versus building for West Ada or West, there's a vast difference in kind of the expectations of what's there. We just built a pre-engineered middle building in Homedale for their gym. It's beautiful. Turns out great. I wouldn't fly. So, there's a lot of different options you can look at. We've had experience with them all.
Great. Should I go in the next?
Yeah, probably just after each question, I would say we just pause if there's any follow-ups and then
Okay.
move on.
We're
Go
good.
silent. I'll just go right on to the next.
Sounds great.
All right. Please describe the process you utilize to secure bids, present the board with, and select subcontractors for a project.
Well, that's more in my realm. So as far as securing bids, we like to obviously being around the area as long as we have a very good understanding of qualified bidders and have done a number of schools. So, we like to solicit all the bidders we possibly can. I mean, there's a lot to be said for competitive numbers, for our district, for taxpayer money. You got to have that competitive nature in there. And so we open up to everybody that's qualified to submit a bid on a project. And one of the things that I do with the bid process is as we solicit the bids with the set of drawings that go out, we put out bid packages for each trade. And this is actually an example of the Masonry package that we used on your Middleton High School. And what it does is it gives that bidder a very good outline of exactly what we want. And those notes 1 through 12 kind of go into detail about, okay, make sure you have this, make sure you have that. And it breaks a project from head to tail into like 30, 40 different trades. And they all know that, hey, I'm doing this, and then the concrete guy's already done this, and then the roofer's doing this. I mean, it's very clean. And over the years, there's always something that comes up that makes us a little bit smarter about what to do in the next one. So we feel like we have some very nice type bid packages. So these go out to all the bidders, and they enjoy them too, because they know they're bidding apples to apples against their competition. Their competition isn't excluding stuff and trying to be sneaky and have a lower number. They're all bidding, like I said, apples to apples. Once we get all the bids, we'll have a bid summary that we will present to you that shows, and this is just 6 packages out of probably 40, 50 of them on this page, but it kind of shows concrete through roofing there that, okay, these are the bids we received. This, in order from lowest to highest, this is, exactly where they came in on their base bid. This is where they came in with the alternates. I'll get into a little bit more of that later. But it gives you guys, the peace of mind and all the detail as to, okay, here we had some good competitive numbers, and this is how it shook out. And as an example of something coming up, if I can make this work, is down here as the bottom roofing one here, over here in the notes. We got a roofing bid from this roofing contractor. He didn't include a bid bond. He didn't use the right bid form, and he excluded a bunch of stuff. So we go through it. We had 4 good bids and 1 bid that, he wasn't doing the right thing, and that's how we present it to you. And then, we make recommendations, the contractors in green, we recommend to move forward with, and we present that to the board along with what the total is with all the little bids. And that kind of explains, pretty much the process of bidding up to the point of starting construction.
I think it goes in hand with that as far as local, specific to local. We've helped a lot of guys that, weren't necessarily public works contractors at the time, but they may be a local contractor that's interested in doing the work. We've helped them get their licenses, like work through the process and encourage them to. It's kind of hard to actually walk them down and make them take all the paperwork. There's a lot of times that can really change the project. You get somebody local that's really interested in taking care of it.
Any other follow-up? You guys good? All right. Please share how you incorporate local vendors in the subcontractor process. I think you were just talking about that. Yeah. I think-
Yeah, you kind of jumped in. Yeah, no big deal, though. That's exactly right. I mean, we want to encourage them. Obviously, there's limits. I mean, you may have a patron that's ABC Drywall, only has a couple guys. They can't do an entire new elementary school for you, right? But they're a great guy. But that, we have our limits. Obviously, they have to have that license level of the right size for the project and those type of things, and insurances and all that. That's part of the things we do is we make sure they are qualified. But yeah, we encourage it, and we can even sometimes structure our bid packages to take advantage of that, because, we like to keep the money in, within the district, if someone's able to do something for that school, why not give them an opportunity? I mean, they will have to bid it, but at least should have the opportunity. And around Middleton, it's so close to the rest of the Treasure Valley, there's really not like the Middleton contractors and Meridian contractors, but, we have had some districts, up North Idaho or over, in more remote areas where we have, it does make more sense to have a smaller package that can take advantage of what they need. So we're accustomed to do whatever you want with that. If you have specific people, we'll make sure they're invited and able to look at that.
Very good. All right. Next question. Share an example of a serious problem you've had with the subcontractor without revealing the subcontractor's name and how you work through the problem.
Well, we have plenty of problems to deal with on a daily basis. Yes. I think our primary goal, especially in setting up the bid packages and being involved early, is to try and minimize and eliminate problems up front. I mean, that's really where we're at, is trying to set it up to where everybody can be successful. We're all working for the same goal to get you to school, but we're still dealing with unions, we're still dealing with contractors. In my career, I think about the biggest one that we've had to work through was on Middleton High School. We were coming out of the 2008 crash, and there were some people financially in trouble, and the HVAC contractor on that project is no longer in business. So I don't think we're going to have to mention their name around it. They put a sign on the door one weekend, and when all the guys showed up on Monday morning, it was closed. They were done. So we're through the grapevine. We had a month on that job, right about 50% completion, where we did not have an HVAC contractor on the job site. So we had to get everybody gathered up, and we had to plan for. We didn't really know how long we were going to plan for, but we had to plan for continuing to be able to work efficiently out there without having ductwork going here, which is tough because it's kind of one of the big rocks that you're trying to fill, as you go. So a lot of planning, pretending like we were going to have ductwork in places, but we immediately started talking to the different HVAC contractors in the valley. It was just a tenuous time, and people had different resources available, and trying to figure out who would be able to jump on it and take advantage of it. Immediately contacted the bonding company, got them notified because they really had to take over at that point, but we just wanted to lead the process. So we got the bonding company involved, started feeding them information about who to talk to. Because if they were left on their own to do it, we knew how it was going to take forever. So we ended up kind of hosting the bonding company and bringing guys on site and doing tours and talking about how we can attack the project and everything. In the end, it worked out really well. We got a great HVAC contractor. They were able to hire the foreman that had run the job for the previous company, who had all of the knowledge of the project. And after a month delay, we were able to continue and get things back up to speed. That was definitely one of the biggest challenges I've had to deal with on a project midstream. It's all about communication.
And highlights the importance of the payment performance model.
Yeah, sure. Okay, great. How do you handle change orders?
Well, it's kind of an ugly word. Nobody likes them. It's, they're a reality. I think, again, starting with the bid packages and working collaboratively up front, you're trying to minimize that. Try to make sure that all those gray areas between those different trades are kind of eliminated at that process. So you eliminate that point where people can start finding holes in the scope and start pointing fingers and figuring it out. But things come up. There's no doubt about it. A lot of times they're generated in the field.
Yep, some unknown, unforeseen situations. A lot of times it's right under the topsoil is where we start finding stuff like that. But yeah, they do a good job in the office of minimizing them up front by identifying, thoroughly the big packages and vetting the plans.
So what we do is when a situation arises, we may identify it as a potential change order, potential cost. And through the process with the design team, whether it's the RFI process or just having the conversation, and we'll talk more about weekly meetings later, but I mean, it's having that communication right away. Hey, this is an issue, we're gonna start figuring out how to deal with it. And then working with the contractor on any pricing that is necessary and sharing that with the design team so they can be a part of that too. Because a lot of times the engineers, in coming up with a solution, we always like to bring solutions to the table to kind of help guide that versus just giving them an open-ended question and hoping for the best. So again, it's like collaboration, working with the design team on coming up with a solution and getting those costs presented and having you guys aware of what's going on. And then there's the administrative side of it as well. So.
It comes to me after it gets approved by the owner and the design team, and then I issue all the change order documentation and get it signed and executed in a timely fashion.
Because they can't bill for any of that stuff until it's executed. So.
And one thing that Ryan touched on a little bit is, underneath the topsoil. One thing we do in the bid package for the site guy is we say, hey, within your base bid number, include an allowance of this many yards of soil that you may have to hog out and replace with structural fill, and give us a price to add or delete from that amount of yardage in case we don't need it or if we need more. And what it does is it gives the whole entire team a little wiggle room, because a lot of times change orders are unforeseen issues, stuff you don't know, and that's underground or if you're remodeling within the walls type of thing, but in a new project. And that way we have that little bit of cushion that we can draw from. But if you don't use it, you get it back. And they don't, one bad thing about change orders is change order pricing, right? I mean, that's kind of the whole bad persona with it. So up front, when they bid it, they say, hey, I've got 500 yards at $25 a yard included. And then we can, at the end of the project, get it back, it's your money, or we know if they go over that many yards, how much they're gonna charge per yard. And so it gives us a nice level playing field where nobody can play games. And, keeps everything up and up.
Good deal. Okay. Please share architects that you've successfully worked with in the past.
Yeah, well, having done a lot of school projects, we've worked with most of them around here, but there's a few that definitely rise to the top as far as the school world. LKV, Design West, Lombard Conrad, HSA, and Hummel are probably the five that we've worked with the most on school projects, with LKV and Design West probably being the top two, to be honest. And I think between the two of them, we're actively working with both of them right now on different schools, and actually different even elementaries. And I bet we have done 50 plus projects with them. So we're very familiar with them. There's no learning curve there. They're used to working with us. We're used to working with them.
50 plus projects with Design West.
And LKV combined.
Okay, combined.
The two of them. Yeah. So, we enjoy working with both of them. I know you are interviewing them obviously later. And, we highly encourage, like we do with our references as far as other school districts, we highly encourage you to ask them, about Bennington specifically and the projects they've done and how we've done with them as a team. We feel like all those people are our best advocates. We recommend you ask them, because we've done so much work with them and enjoy working with both of them.
All right, sounds good. Is there anything your company does that other companies do not, and what sets you apart?
Interesting. I think for us and for me specifically, we've got a lot of local experience. I think we kind of honed in on our map from before, just on everybody here in the valley that we've worked with. We've got a lot of experience here locally working with all of the counties and all the other school districts. And we really enjoy the schoolwork. That's really what we focus on as a company, where we know we're not all things to all people, but we know we do this really well. You know, we've got 30 employees. We're not a giant company by any means, but these projects are our bread and butter, and they are important to us. And we know how important they are to the school districts. We recognize, you know, just how exciting it is, you know, how important it is for you guys to continue to provide these kids a place to go to school. And I think what sets us apart is really the experience. You know, it should not be a difficult process. It shouldn't be something you dread. This should be a lot of fun. It should be exciting. Everybody should enjoy it. You know, you're getting into school. You know? So, you know, contracting has its connotations at times where people kind of are concerned about it. And that's not. We want to provide a good experience. That's a huge part of it. And I think, like Alan mentioned, I think just talk to our other clients and, you know, get their take on it. That's really what we want. And we want you guys to be informed. We'll be here at the board meetings talking to you every month, you know, letting you know how things are going. So, like to be engaged and like to be part of the team.
Super.
Yeah, I think definitely the thing that sets us apart is just not only the number of clients, but the repeat nature of it. I mean, multiple bond elections, multiple years. I mean, guys like, what's a good example? I mean, Homedale picked us in 1999 and then again in 2019. I mean, you think about 20, you know, that much longer, we're still, you know, I think that's a good testament of we take care of everyone and into the future. It's not like we blow in, do a job and I'm gone. You know, we're there. We joke that our Benetton warranty is the same as the years we were in business, because we take calls on projects that are, you know, way beyond. Obviously, you have the standard 1-year warranty, those things. So we take calls. We try to help find out stuff. I think it was the Purple Sage wash stations that they had issues with it. That was when those auto stations first came out, where you put your hands in and they wash. And we had a heck of a time, and the school had a heck of a time keeping those things operating right. And Ryan, actually, you can explain it.
I spent many hours underneath one of those things, figuring out how they work, the wiring diagram and everything like that, the modules that they put into them, and how eventually they weren't really built for, they weren't ready yet, I guess, to be distributed to school districts. So I know at the end of the day, they went with just a vacuum type operation on them. But no, many years under those things.
Yeah.
The manufacturer provided zero support. So they were written out of your specs in that.
Yeah.
No longer love.
Describe your budgeting planning process as well as how it is handled if there's a significant change.
So, you know, as we assume that will happen with this is you'll select a design team and a construction manager, and, you know, we'll start out with conceptual estimates based off of, you know, the size of school you need or whatever. And that's where we have a lot of historical data to draw from. But as far as the budgeting, you know, as the design develops, we'll provide estimates at every kind of design milestone to make sure we stay on that budget. And so that, you know, at the 20%, at the 50%, at whatever level of drawings, like, okay, yeah, we're still, you know, within our range here. If there's a significant change, I mean, like we keep saying the same word, communication. I mean, we'll let you know, like, hey, all of a sudden you guys have asked for this. It's going to add a lot of money, or all of a sudden, you know, something's happened in the world and now the market, you know, things are happening. So we need to reconsider what do we want to do here, you know? So we keep an eye on the market. We keep an eye on all that, and we'll be the first to let you know, like, hey, there's something we need to talk about. One of the things that happens that we really think is a great thing is to have what's called ad alternates. So your base bid of your school is the must needs of the building. The ad alternates can be the if we can afford it once beyond that point. And what that gives you on bid day is, you know, hopefully it comes in well, and not only do you get the must needs, but you can pick from that list of the extra wants and get, you know, more than you want. And that, it gives you at bid day good competitive numbers to get the look at that shopping list and add on some stuff, hopefully, maybe all of it. I mean, we've had that happen where things come in great and they take care of the alternate, and that's great. But it's just better at that time to do it than to do it as an ad later, or have to figure out, oh my gosh, we came in over budget because we drew the whole thing as the Taj Mahal, and now we have to cut away from it. And that takes time, and a lot of times you can't get dollar for dollar back on that type of stuff, and it just makes the drawings messy. That's another way that we kind of prepare for if it's a significant change, let's draw a line here, and then these two classrooms at the end of the swing, maybe they're an alternate, If we can afford them, that's what we'd love to have, but if we can't, at least we have a school.
Okay. How do you process payments with the district throughout the building phase?
I'll speak on that. The payout process is a pretty structured process for us. We require payouts to be submitted to us by the 25th of the month. And that's projected through the end of the month. And then they come through me to look at change orders, make sure they've got their change orders in there that are executed. And we don't allow them to bill for any that aren't approved. And then I give them to the project managers to review for completion of work. I don't necessarily know where everybody's at, so the PMs review them for whether that work has actually been complete that they can bill for. Sometimes they include stored materials. So if they order the materials and have it either on-site or off-site, we'll allow them to bill for them if they're off-site, but we require that they provide insurance that lists the owner as lost payees, so that if you pay for those materials, you'll get reimbursed for that if something were to happen to them. So anyway, as far as the payment process, we appreciate the working with this type of project, because typically CM projects are paid a little more timely, so the subcontractors appreciate that as well. And we have a 3-day turnaround from when we get paid to our subcontractors. The only time I hold those is if they are missing insurance or missing some paperwork that we require to make sure that they get that submitted. And they usually respond when they say you'll get paid. That carrot is enticing, so.
So, when they're turned over to the project managers, we look at the work in progress in the field. A lot of times, it'll kind of correspond with a monthly meeting. We'll do a monthly owner-architect contract meeting. We'll walk the field so the architect's real clear on where we're at too, and then they've got to certify that building. Beyond us signing off on it, they've got to look at it and say, yep, they're where they say they are. And then that comes to you guys, and we always want to make sure it comes to you in plenty of time so it can be part of your board agenda and get looked at with the bills.
Sounds good. Here, can you describe how you have developed relationships with subcontractors and how you have maintained those relationships?
As far as developing the relationships, a lot of it, I think, comes from just a lot of exposure to them. I mean, I've been around a lot of these contractors for a number of years and seen many of the employees of these contractors with different employers. So the same mason foreman might be with one company today, and the next job I'll see him again on another one, and then 3 years later I'll see him again with a different name. And it boils down a lot to communication and having respect for them and their companies, so that you get really what you want out of the whole deal, but they feel fulfilled in what they're providing to you too. You're not trying to just run over the top of them. And when that happens, it seems like everything flows a lot better. You get a lot better project, and you're excited to see them on the next project. Some of the more fly-by-night ones and everything like that, you don't get that much at the end of the day from them. So you work as hard as you can with them, and you expect to see them down the road, is the way I treat these guys. And, it works out pretty good. But there again, the big thing is communication with them and working with them throughout the entire project, encouraging them and, and understanding that they are a professional also.
Prompt payments really help too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it all comes together. Ryan and the guys in the field spend so much time with them. I mean, it's day in and day out, and then we have various contact depending on what's happening. Obviously, if everything's going smooth, you don't have near as many interactions. They're interacting daily.
Yeah.
But, when it comes to Alan soliciting bids and putting bid packages out there, I mean, it translates right over to that. Through the last few years with his tax, his value's been resource-wise and everything, it's been difficult to just get bids on some work.
And trades pick and choose, what they want to do. And so you want to be at the top of the list, not the bottom as far as, who they want to work with, what project they'd like to work on and stuff. So it makes a big deal. It's, it's from top to bottom, not top to bottom, from field to in the office is, that relationship goes a whole way across the board there. We want them to be confident that, we're going to pay them. Our bid packages are clean. They know what they're doing. We have it scheduled correctly, so they don't show up. We took and find out, oh, you don't even need us for 2 weeks. Now what? Now we got to juggle things around. It's all about communication, respecting them. They respect us back, and it results in a better project for you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
You had mentioned about the timing, and I don't think we mentioned this in any of the questions. The timing and the difficulty in finding some bids for, just because of the economy and how many projects are going on throughout the valley and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about what you've done to mitigate that, to help solve that problem as much as you can?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times if we can get ahead of it early enough, with the design team and the owner, it's always best to bid projects towards the earliest we can of a calendar year, because people are still trying to fill their plates. And so, obviously sometimes you can't help that, the bond passes on this date and you have this many months of design, and so it falls where it falls. But a lot of times you can adjust that a little bit. So when you bid something, it's super important, because you want to bid it when people still are hungry, looking for work, and give them enough time that, it's not like, hey, this bids and we want you to start next week, because most people are busy and they're just going to say, well, I can't do this project. But and a lot of that also comes into play with even at the early stages, like, should we build a wood frame school or should we build one with metal studs and steel? If you know that in the valley, every wood framer out there is building these apartment complexes, and they are just completely, even if wood on paper is cheaper, if you don't have bidders, it doesn't end up cheaper. If you only get one bid and he knows he's the only bidder, he's going to give you a high number. So then we go, well, let's go with steel studs, because we can get 6 or 7 of those bidders. So we look at all those aspects. We keep a good eye on the market of what's going on and steer you in the right direction. And that's one of the things is, the Treasure Valley is big, but it's still small in nature with what it's limited on manpower, on resources. And we have to really watch that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please share what you look for when comparing potential sites for building.
Well, along with the design team, because the architect and engineer certainly have a lot to do with that. But initially, I think right out of the gate, looking at a site, you're going to look at your jurisdiction. You're going to look if you're in the county or if you're in the city limits, what services are available, wet and dry utilities, water, sewer. Is it something that we're going to have to do a big utility project to be able to serve that facility, or are the utilities already in the roadway right adjacent to the site? That's always a big one. We've definitely had some experiences where we've had to do some big utility work to service the school. And it's costly and timely, it takes time. And the approvals to the jurisdictions right now too can be a challenge, because they've got a lot. It's being funneled through their offices. And so trying to plan for that and make sure that they're aware of it and that they'll try and take care of it. From there, good grief, it's, some of the more rural sites, you may be looking at more traffic impact stuff, or you got to do roadway improvements. Maybe it's just turn lanes, maybe it's roundabouts on either side of the high school. There's a lot of things to consider with that. And then just looking at the site itself, on the site, soil conditions, groundwater, does it have a lot of slope? Is there going to be a lot of grading or retaining walls or something required? Or is there rock? Down in Cunitz, it's a totally different situation than up here. Groundwater can run issue. And then just looking at your other jurisdictions, irrigation districts come into play a lot of times, especially if we're developing rural land, just figuring out what we'd have to do maybe to reroute or tile some irrigation ditches or things, working with Black Canyon here locally and Canyon Hill and, Boise project seems to get involved a lot of times because they're kind of feeding everybody, but that's a big one. And then the dry utilities as well, but Idaho Power, they had really long lead times for a while, and you really had to get out ahead of that because it may take almost a year by the time you get them, kind of notified before they get their designs done and get their equipment and everything ready. So it's kind of looking at it from all angles.
Sounds good. Can you share price per square foot comparisons of several recent projects you've completed? Ideally, of course, school projects.
Yeah, you have a lot of cost questions, so I'm getting to talk a lot. That's like everybody's concern these days, so I totally understand. But I put together a little sheet here.
Is this something you could share with us after,
sure.
like
Oh,
that
yeah,
you
absolutely.
could email to us after?
Yeah, so this is a kind of a comparison of elementary schools specifically. We just boiled it down to those. And in the blue are new elementary schools, and in the green are kind of elementary school addition and renovations. So they're more of a different animal with that. Sometimes, you can see over on the far right, the cost per square foot kind of jumps around, and especially like, for example, Hollister was a historic school in downtown Boise. So anytime you're trying to retrofit, restore, and do all those things, I mean, the cost just gets kind of crazy on that type of stuff. So more related to probably what you guys are doing would be, the upper stuff there. And so it kind of shows them by year and the size of them, and then kind of the cost per square foot. The top two, we're joking that if you would have waited, I think 28 hours later, we'd be bidding Falcon Ridge Elementary. So tomorrow at 2:00, we're bidding Falcon Ridge Elementary, which is for Valley View School District. It's about an 80,000 square foot school. But those are the prices that we're gunning for to hopefully hit there as far as cost per square foot on that one. 2 weeks later, we bid Warhawk Elementary, the top one there on the list. It's identical to Falcon Ridge as far as the building's concerned. It's got a much simpler site, and that's kind of ties into the price the same. Falcon Ridge has a very sloped site, so we have to do a retaining wall, a lot of moving around with the dirt and stuff, and it definitely makes it a more expensive school in total. But anyhow, this kind of gives you an idea, and it kind of illustrates, just showing you like on the first kind of group there, and those, since in 8 years, how much it's jumped. I mean, it's kind of sad, honestly, and it's a little bit unbelievable. I mean, even as an estimator for a living, I sometimes can't believe how much stuff costs. That's what I'm supposed to know, but it's crazy how things have happened, and definitely, we've definitely seen some pretty major inflation. Just for fun, I threw Purple Sage Elementary down there, that was in 2002. Back then, so a patron comes and says, hey, you can build a school for $100 a foot. You can say, yeah, I could, and I did 20 years ago. Not today. So anyhow, hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of idea there. As far as projecting forward, it really depends on, that's where the crystal ball comes out, but when you're going to run your bond, okay, then if you are going to start over with a clean new design, time for design, and then finally bidding might end up being in 2025. I don't know, it just really depends on, of course, first going to pass that bond. That's always a major first hurdle, but we'll be here to help you kind of project that and what we should figure for inflation and things like that. So.
Really quick, are Warhawk and Falcon Ridge going to be following a similar design to Skyway?
They are, and also to what was your elementary number 4
Right.
special design.
Right.
Yeah, so they are, all have that kind of that 3-finger design. Yes.
So for the board and anybody watching, that the design of Skyway is what we were looking at the last bond we tried to run. We were trying to look at that design. Are there any of those other schools that are also that same design?
No, just Skyway, Warhawk, and Falcon Ridge.
Okay.
The others are a different design. None of them are really necessarily similar. Like Valley View Elementary is a 2-story. I mean, there's a bunch of different things going on there, but
Amity's kind of close.
was that Amity's
Kind of looks like
It
it.
was 2 fingers.
2 fingers?
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be.
Different architect.
Mhm.
And you can ask Alicia about notice.
Right. Yeah. She was pretty involved there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Important.
Yeah, notice when Skyway Notice bid, that was a good time. We got some really good numbers on those.
We're really looking forward to these bids here the next couple of weeks. It's honestly through COVID, there weren't a lot of successful bonds. So there haven't been a lot of big greenfield projects we did. So really looking forward to having that, getting those bids and having that data.
Yeah, it's been, doom and gloom, everything's going up, but, as Bryce said, in the school world, people have either failed bonds or not ran them because they're worried about being failed. Short of Valley View was that lucky to pass, I think Jerome and a few others, but, so those guys that kind of like us focused on school and trade levels, they've been having to, look at other things, and they're very excited that these two schools are coming out. Yeah, give us a couple of weeks and we'll have 2 other elementaries worth of knowledge of what costs would be that we can share, with the group, for sure.
Well, you guys would have a very unique perspective, and I've always wondered how that worked with the high school being built right after that 2008 crash, because costs really plummeted, right? And so that really helped, of course, our cost per square foot then. It seems like costs have gone down, at least some of the basic materials. And but it doesn't really seem to equate to lower cost per square foot yet. And maybe you can explain how that works.
Yeah, like lumber, a few other things have gone down a little up again, but again, the biggest thing around our area is just people's ability, having it's the competitive nature of being busy or not. It really drives it more than just kind of material based. It's not just the labor, it's having the labor exactly. And it's hopefully all these CTE programs are doing stuff, start refilling that backfilling that side. We have guys actually want to work, out on site and stuff, and we're hoping to see that, but in the long term. But yeah, it's I think we're hoping to see some good numbers tomorrow afternoon and 2 weeks from now, and hopefully it'll help with predicting other stuff like your guys' project.
It's like much better bid coverage for sure.
Yeah, definitely some good interest.
Okay. Please describe your familiarity and experience working with Camden County Services.
Yeah, we been fortunate to do a lot of work within Camden County and for Camden County. We're actually doing a couple projects for them right now, and I'm familiar with their building department. Notice Elementary was built in the county. Valley View, some of their sites are actually within the county. They're not in either Caldwell or Napa, so I have a lot of familiarity working with them. They tend to be good partners. I think just being more rural and kind of understanding that situation and everything.
Compared to Ada County, do you like Camden County better?
Watch the line on
Yeah.
Don't want to say as much familiarity with Ada County. Most of the time when you're working in Ada County, you're city wizards. So
That is true.
a lot of times with the county projects too on the school side, you're seeing a lot of stuff to the state. They're doing a lot of the reviews just depending on the size and the complexity of the projects. Sometimes they just don't have the resources to tackle it. But I mean, dealing with, the inspection side of things, it's within Camden County, you've also got like Camden Highway District number 4. You've got, some different jurisdictions there too, depending on who owns and maintains what roadways and so, but certainly a lot of familiarity out in these areas and with the different jurisdictions.
Okay. Describe how a typical weekly meeting would go, who would be involved, and how you address the project schedule during those meetings.
So out on site, we would have a weekly meeting that typically follows the same kind of format. The first thing up on the agenda would be schedule, and myself and a project manager would go through the schedule the day prior to make sure that everything is captured accurately as to where we're sitting at that point in time. And then the meeting would go through the schedule as it sits, through any kind of changes or RFIs, requests for information and stuff like that have surfaced in prior meetings and prior situations. We go through and see what the answers are, or what's pending, waiting for answers and stuff like that. And then we bring up new business, new problems and anything like that. And of course, these meetings, the owner is always welcome to show up. I've had, for instance, down in Cuna, the representative there, he came and visited me every single day. He made every meeting and it was fine. We enjoy that. And at the end of the day, he knows exactly what he's got. He knows where every nut and bolt in that place is practically and who put it all together. the other thing about the meetings is they capture everything that we're doing on paper and document it but in between that, I'm out there every day with those people so that when we show up to that meeting, everybody in that meeting is pretty well aware of exactly what's going on. So it's more of a review and kind of stating where we are rather than kind of people showing up going, oh, hey, this isn't new to me, you know? So it's a good tool that works out well.
No, I think you captured it really well. No, I think we appreciate and encourage the attendance by the owner and by the design team, just because it keeps everybody up to speed. It's hard when you're only hearing about things once a month, because things happen fast. There's a lot going on out there, like you said. You do meet once a week formally, but they're meeting every day on all kinds of stuff.
The attendance of them also it varies a little bit too. Depending on the capability or the type of contractor you have, you may have the foreman show up or depending on his level, the project manager for that company might show up every week too. So but somebody of competence is always at those meetings for everybody that's on site.
Yeah, it's not a situation where we're waiting until that meeting to address issues. That meeting's kind of our formal sit down with everybody at the table.
Okay, perfect.
People don't want to show up to meetings when they know it's just gonna be issues.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you see as strong cost saving opportunities in the school construction process?
So here we go, more cost stuff. All right. This is a tough one. I mean, the main thing is having an efficient, simple design, I think is a big deal. I mean, I think you want your schools to look nice and at the entrance level and everything, you want patrons to be proud of their schools. I mean, a lot of communities, their school is kind of their face, as they have other teams come over to play games and whatever. Your schools are kind of a representation of your community. So, we want it to look nice, but we also think it needs to be efficient, We don't need to have design awards on, your architects may feel different later, but yeah, I mean, we want something that's efficient. We can save money if, classrooms are the same, like a lot of those schools that have the wings that are identical. I think they also program out better that way too for the staff, but an efficient, clean design is a big deal. And then as I talked earlier, just evaluation of the construction materials to use, whether it be wood or steel or, you brought up pre-engineered steel buildings, and stuff like, we want to be able to present to you the pros and cons of something like that. That sometimes works as a supplemental part of a building, but not, the main frame, the main part of the building, those type of things. So.
And cement just keeps going up like crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
That really affect what you can do.
Yes, exactly. So, we keep a close eye on everything and it may change from, 1 year to the next, what we recommend, just based off of what's going on in the industry. But, just like I said, you want your school to look nice, but it needs to be efficient, and that's what you're going to probably get your best bang for your buck.
Okay,
Cost per foot.
as we're down to the last question. The district has a need for various cost options with the potential ramifications of each choice so that the district can optimally balance the potential for bond passage with the responsibility to build a school that will last as long as possible. How would you assist the district with this need?
Yeah, yet again, I mean, it's just working hand in hand with the design team you pick and yourselves and coming up with what is the best approach. I know there's essentially what you guys are trying to find is that sweet spot of what can we ask for in a bond that'll get us the best, building facility that fits our needs, and there's usually always a lot more want than there is ability to pay for it. Unfortunately, that happens all the time with every project, but just presenting you with options, and that you can then also share with patrons. We're working with CUNA School District right now with, they're going to potentially try for another bond. And they're trying to figure out, okay, do we want to finish Swan Falls High School and build an elementary and remodel the middle schools? Or do we want to just do 2 of the 3? Do we want to do a bond measure for each one, you know? And then let the patrons decide, yes, I do want this, but these aren't as important, you know? Because you hate to have something that takes the whole thing down. And we've been working with Middleton for a number of years on this latest attempt to pass a bond, and I think you guys did exactly that. I think there was some feedback that came back like, why would I vote for a new elementary school when Heights Elementary has this, and this wrong, you know? Why aren't you touching Heights? Why aren't you touching, you know, you're gonna get that feedback, you know, people want to benefit from it if they're gonna vote for it, you know? So we'll help you with, okay, yeah, you know, a new school plus doing this here is this amount of dollars and this, you know, so whatever makes the best sense that maximizes your guys' ability to pass that bond is really what you're trying to shoot for, and you understand that.
Yeah, I think just the experience you bring to the table, just the variety of different projects and different situations that we've lived through and working hand in hand with, you know, the design team you're gonna be talking to, just being at the table and bringing our experience, and you know, so much of it is cost related. Continue to talk about, and that's what's really, it's important, you know, that's what, where the rubber meets the road with a lot of your patrons, so they get their tax bill. So we want to make sure that they appreciate what you're spending their money on. Good stewards of that.
Sounds good. We're at about an hour. Is that about where we should be? Yeah,
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, anything else?
Any others?
Any other questions? You have any, Derek?
No, I do not. If you
No?
have anything further, please feel free to reach out to us and we can.
That's probably, if there was something that came up in another interview that then the board said, well, we'd like to know what Benetton has, we'll reach out and just ask for an email response or something like that we can share with the board, so.
And again, yeah, just encourage you to talk to our references to your colleagues.
Yes.
We probably all come back anyway.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Rest of your day.
Thank you.
Oh, really messed up mine last week.
I stuck a 16 pin and helped me my thumb.
Very nice to meet you.
You, Alan.
Appreciate it. You bet, absolutely. Nice to see you.
So you don't mind seeing me yet?
No, anytime, we do it all the time.
I'm good at it.
We're not good at it. All right, we're gonna come over, we do appreciate it.
So you won't say, who are you, and go away?
Yeah, that's what I agree.
We used it in a while.
Just give her a hard hat with her name on it.
Oh, yeah, that'd be nice, yeah.
You can actually pop out the side door and
Okay.
push it to the. Thank you again.
All right, see ya.
Are we gonna be able to take a 5-minute break?
Yeah, go ahead. If you need to go to,
I'm gonna go ahead and bring the next
The
group back so
restroom.
they can get their presentation set up, so.
We'll have a few
We're
minutes.
still, you don't want it turned off.
I think it's fine, as long as everybody understands we're
Yeah.
still live.
That sounds good. There's probably- so, watching there, there's-
look at that. My boy is doing a presentation at a.
Is it such a? Yeah.
Who's taking pictures for you?
One of Lacey, I don't know, who's, oh, Lacey's not in here, she can't. tell me.
I don't know, I didn't call you back.
I'm gonna get one more chair.
Busy and stuff.
Oh, the fifth person is remember. Oh, okay.
That'll go.
He's gonna check on some data.
That's different.
Oh, okay, so, because I can put another one up.
So Lisa Boyd called me back.
Oh, good.
And we are,
Message.
just so you know, we are filming, this is live right now, so, okay.
And got a hold of him. There's double,
Yeah.
Tom Willis is on here twice, Lisa Boyd's on here twice.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
okay, perfect.
and then,
You have a flash drive?
assistant.
Good,
And there's gonna be 2 people that will call me back that are more like.
Answer your question, though.
Specialized in that.
Yeah, Bub doesn't do much, and these two are there. Well,
What do you?
I like
are
things,
you-
yeah.
Dog.
If yours works, we worked it
Yeah.
last time, so.
so I at least got a hold of, I left messages, they weren't there, so.
Okay, there's two files here.
Yes, the PowerPoint one.
I think I'll fall asleep.
I should not have. But I didn't.
I should have brought you on Sunday.
No. I should have left early. I got something down there.
Oh, yeah, I got you a little coffee or something.
Yeah. So this is.
Show me.
No plastic covers.
Perfect.
If you did, you could have
Forward, backwards. Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Thanks. Those two buttons are actually mouse,
Grandpa
like
can do
mouse
okay.
buttons. So if you end up
No.
clicking on that,
Yeah.
it'll be like mouse.
I at least.
We don't want that.
His phone now. Because he.
Does anybody need the, oh, do you need a, do you want an ESI booklet? I've got the extras back.
That would be great, honestly.
You're welcome.
I'll take one. It's fine. Thank you.
Do you want to ask questions this time?
I don't know, but I don't
Oh, we'll
care.
just take turns.
Oh, I see. I thought that is better than going. like that.
Yes, yes, yes. Lisa's having a string cheese.
Let me give you the other,
Do you want one?
let me give you the, I'll take that one back, that's the original.
Gotcha. No, I have a protein bar here. I just need a bite of. Eat breakfast at 6 a.m.
Can you make it to the throwdown last night?
I did. It
That
was, did you make it?
I did, that was,
Good game.
my ears were ringing as I left the building, it
That
was
was a
quite the
lot
thing.
of fun.
It was a very much a lot of
Really
fun.
good job. And the outcome was good.
What was that?
And the outcome was good.
Right, the right team
A
won,
little
so.
scary there at the
It
end, though.
was. A little too many turnovers toward.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Good here. And whenever you're ready, we're.
Okay, are you guys ready? Cindy's gonna ask the questions this time.
Okay.
Oh, that's all right. Welcome, I'm Pam Wagoner, board chair, and this is Christy Powell. She's gonna ask you guys questions, but I understand you're gonna give us a presentation first.
That's right.
All right, so the floor is yours.
Okay, well, we'll just start with some introductions first, for each of us. I'm Joe Jackson, Executive Vice President with ESI. Been with ESI for 20 years. In the last 15 years, I've overseen all of our public school work, infrastructure work, local commercial work. So our company generally has a vested interest in that type of public work. Our people get a bigger charge out of working on infrastructure projects, fire stations, schools, things like that. My wife's an educator, so we just appreciate the chance to be here today, so thanks.
So my name is Anita Kyle. I'm with ESI 19 years, not local, as you can hear from the accent. But it's happening. So my title is Director of Pre-Construction, so leading the charge in a lot of, the estimating, the pre-construction, the procurement. And CMGC, I've done a lot of it over the last 15 plus years, and hopefully I'll get a chance to share some of that experience with you.
I'm Chris Furman, Superintendent for ESI. I'm a Treasure Valley native, born and raised in Meridian. I've been in the trades in the local market since I was 18. I've been in construction management since I was 22. And no matter how I do the math, I turned 46 today. So
Well, happy birthday.
I'm Nathan Nethers. I'm Project Executive with ESI. I'll be your main point of contact, your team leader and your partner on this journey over next, whoever knows how long. Really from day one through ribbon cutting all the way through the end of the warranty period, and probably beyond. I have personally a vested interest in this project, as Mark said. I am a Middleton resident. My son goes to Middleton High. This project personally means a lot to me and my family, my neighbors, my community. So it's really exciting to be a part of this, and I look forward to seeing this thing open so I can help my neighbors out.
Thanks, Nathan. So as you said, we do have just a short presentation just to go through a few things, because you asked some great questions and we want to give time to discuss those with you. A few numbers just generally that we're proud of. We're 50 years as an Idaho general contractor. We turned 50 last year, so we're very proud of that. Over 160 CMGC projects, so we're very accustomed to that process and how the state statute works and all of that, so we'll be a good guide for you in that process. Over 1 million square feet of classroom technical training space. And probably our proudest number really is our 0.54 EMR safety rating. If you're familiar with that metric, it's very good for our industry and something we're proud of. We consider ourselves a safety leader in our industry as well as our community. It means a lot to us.
So really it comes down to how can ESI help Middleton, right, and be your partner. Truly, as Joe just said, we have a long CMGC history. This is a delivery method we know very well. We've experienced a lot of success with it, something we're very familiar with as a firm and as this team, and me personally have done a lot of CMGC work. So we know how to leverage its benefits for you folks, right? It's all about value and options and arming you guys with the information you need in order to make successful and smart decisions with your budget, right? And then honoring that budget. It truly holds us accountable to Middleton to put the value of your budget where you folks deem it most important. And again, it's arming you folks with that information to make good decisions, as well as holding the trade partners accountable, right? To their contract, to the plan, to the community, to your budget, and honestly, giving them the tools to be successful as well. If they're successful, you're going to have a successful project. It's overwhelmingly that way. As well as bid timing and packaging, right? It gives us that flexibility to modify, when we go out to bid, how we package this thing, how we put it together, how we advertise it, how we assemble the GMP, really to take advantage of, maybe there's volatility in the market, there's mega projects going on, there's other market things going on in the Treasure Valley that we can account for. So again, it's maximizing that value for Middleton.
So unfortunately, you don't have this 20 to 25 million just sitting in the bank, so we are going to have to go through the bond process for this, and we're here for you for that. So one thing that we do a lot of is just monitor what's going on, both in the local and the state level, especially what's going on in the legislative session right now. Understand what it is, how it's getting paid, and how that money gets spent and allocated. So before that, so that's on the legislative side. Before that, this team has to bring this to the local voters. So we have been, we'd be very helpful just arming you with the information with the budgets, whether it's just the budget for the hard cost of construction, or this is an example I'll show you after of where we help take the whole cost of the project, not just the dollars and cents that go into the construction, but permits and fees and everything else. So bottom line, what to expect and how much it's going to cost. So you're going forward into the bond with a number you can count on. But it's showing up at those meetings, it's showing up at those public meetings and being able to give you someone to divert those questions to that can answer that as well. Yeah. Sorry?
Is that an example?
Yeah, that's the total sheet. But, sorry. And then just a vested interest in this, like it is our kids. So I'm actually in the Boise School District and I and others as part of the PTA at the time, just helping, I personally knocked on doors, I personally made calls, different people have different ways that we can help with this going forward. And then just marketing to our subcontractors, how important this is, and then marketing to our internal people, how important this bond is, so.
Yeah, if I could add on to that, it's, in any project, we consider it super important to market the project to the subcontractor community, just to make sure that subcontractors are saving capacity for these projects, because you want to get as many people interested as possible. And you get that dual effect here by knocking on doors and making phone calls and having, town hall-ish type meetings with those subcontractors. That generates interest in the Middleton community, hopefully positive interest for passing the bond as well. So I think you get a dual effect there. On our school experience, as you can see from our response to the RFP, that we have a fair amount of K through 12 experience, charter school experience, higher education experience, but we have a lot of other experience as well. There's a kind of a niche of subcontractors that follow the school markets around, HVAC guys, electricians, guys that are good at it, and they just follow the school districts around and do that work, and they do a great job and at a good price. I think an advantage with us is we will bring another chunk of subcontract interest from all the other work that we do to compete for your work and really bring you the best price that the market will bear. So we think that's an advantage to your overall project. Well, those were the kind of few high points that we wanted to cover initially, just to give you an overall feel. But we do think you've asked some great questions, and we're ready to answer them in whatever format.
Okay. I'm Cindy, and I'll be asking you questions. So you guys decide who's going to answer. How will you address requests from the school district that may not be real prudent, manageable, or practical from the perspective of you guys as a construction manager?
Sure. So Cindy, this is something you'll be shocked to know, right? We encounter this elsewhere on other projects. So it really starts early about establishing who the stakeholders are in the project and really, setting up that governance. Who are we communicating to? How are we handling those communications? Beyond that, right, it's incumbent upon us to log the request and honestly run it to ground, right? Unless somebody from your team tells us to stop, we won't stop. We're gonna arm you folks with that information again, so you can make an educated decision, so you can understand, hey, this person requested this. This is what it does to the schedule. This is what it does to the budget, or whatever the impact is, and arm yourself with that information. We can make informed decisions as a team, and then evaluate whether you want to move forward or not.
Okay. Please describe the process you utilize to secure bids, present the board with, and select subcontractors for the project.
So this process is very prescriptive, for us. We have to follow the state statutes. The one thing is we will start off early, and we're not truly going out to bid for a considerable period of time later. So the first thing we have to do is check and see who's got public works licenses for that scope of work, check their limits of liability, make sure it hasn't expired or anything. I am full of examples here today, but we put together a document like this very early on. And what that is, and I'll give it to you here in a few minutes, we develop the budget. We break that budget down into bid packages. Those bid packages, you don't want any double up or gaps in them, right? You want to make sure the whole scope of work's accounted for. We'll put a value to each bid package. We go to the Public Works license to see who is licensed at that limit, that dollar limit, and put it on a spreadsheet here to make sure we've got bid coverage. We will do this early, so if there's say it's an electrical scope of work and the electricians we expect to see aren't there, then we call them up and help walk them through the process, or understand who were once licensed, why are they not, and make sure that we've got a detailed scope of work or a detailed list of subcontractors for every scope of work or bid package. But then across the top, what you'll see is that we have to verify that they fill in all the right forms on bid day. So this is an example of a bid package. We'll try and be as clear as possible. It's something we're always tweaking and trying to get better at. And on bid day, We will need members, the bids come in sealed envelopes, right? We sit there as a group, ESI and whomever from the team, whether it's the whole board of trustees, sit there and we rip open these bids together and then we start ticking these boxes. They filled in the bid form. They have the right, license limit and all the way across. So then you see what's going on right there on bid day. And then we will take some time to analyze those bids and make sure that nothing's sneaked through when we're opening up, 130, 50 bids all in one go. It's a fun afternoon, actually. But yeah, very prescriptive is what I want to say.
Yeah, the statute actually requires us to open it with you all and publish the results in some fashion. And then hire the low bidder. Once we establish that subcontractor list, if they turn in the bid and they turn it in on time and they sign the paperwork correctly, they're getting the project. So it's imperative to us to make sure that our bid package is right when it goes out, because we can't go back and say, well, did you have, the rebar in this? That doesn't work. It needs to be solid up front. So there's really can't do any post-bid clarifications really unless that contractor would just alter bid. So that process is really important, and we've done it a lot.
I'm learning a lot. That's for sure. Please share how you incorporate local vendors in the subcontractor process.
So kind of just adding to what I've said before, so I'm 19 years here. What happens after you make a decision here today, it'll get publicized that, ESI was awarded this project. Yes, as soon as we're awarded any project, we will get calls and they will say, how can I help? What's the schedule? Stuff like that. We've deep relationships going back, in the Treasure Valley, in this specific area. We'll also reach out to you and say, who does the majority of your maintenance work on the existing buildings that are here? Make sure we're collecting the names from you and your team, as well as who we expect to show up and who is qualified being public licenses, safety, responsible subcontractors, to make sure that we have the right team on this job going forward. So it's a lot of relationships and it's advertising and marketing early.
Yeah, and to add on to that, making sure, I need to mention the licensing and the values, and there may be some Middleton contractors, or maybe some Canyon County contractors that are interested, but maybe they don't have the right level, getting them early enough so that they can up that level. And if the HVAC package is worth $600,000 and they're only qualified up to $400,000, they have time to raise that value so that when bid time comes, that they can bid it. So you don't want them to get left out because they didn't have some advance notice. And you can't just change that overnight. It takes a little bit of time. So marketing the project so that all those interested parties have an opportunity to get involved. And obviously, the whole Canyon County area has a great subcontractor following. In Middleton proper and just outside of Middleton with the Lura Constructions and the Rule Steels and 44 Irons, and there's a lot of great companies out here. There's a lot of connections to great companies out here, so there's lots of opportunity there. I can tell you from experience, we built schools in Boise and Meridian and Eastern Idaho, Twin Falls, Post Falls, and all good experiences, but you really take note in places like Twin Falls and Post Falls, those smaller communities, when those smaller subcontractors get interested in the project because they've got kids going to the schools. And it's just a different feeling of ownership from the guys in the field doing the work. And I expect you're going to see something similar here. Not that every subcontractor that shows up on the project is going to be a Canyon County or Middleton native, but you're going to get some extra ownership in the project by involving locals.
Please share an example of a serious problem you had with a subcontractor without letting us know who it was and how you work through that problem.
This is a great question. This comes up often. So obviously construction is an imperfect process, and there's challenges every day on project sites, and some more substantial than others. The example I have for you today is few years back, we built 2 elementary schools in the Twin Falls market, and they were staggered by 2 or 3 months apart each on their start date. Both were planning to open in the same fall timing. They were CMGC, actually 2 of the first CMGC projects that the public statute allowed back in 17 maybe. Anyway, we had a steel fabricator that won the first project and a different steel fabricator that won the second project. The first one was a company from around here that we have a lot of experience with, and their steel showed up and it got installed and it went well. The second one happened to be a local Twin Falls fabricator that was having some turmoil, some turnover, and they just put more work than they could handle, and they informed us kind of last minute, not totally last minute, but close to it, that they were going to be late on delivering their steel, as much as 6 to 8 weeks, which that's a big deal when it comes to a school. It's crippling, and it was the second school. The first school, there was a little bit of buffer because they're both delivering the same fall, but we didn't have any buffer here. So we started having some tough conversations and different paths to take when a situation like that happens. You can write a letter and get lawyers involved and go fabricate it somewhere else and spend a bunch of money and then fight with that guy that wasn't meeting his date later about what that costs. And that's a local community member there. Or you can be late and have an unhappy customer and kids not in school and be fighting with potentially your customer and that local vendor, which is also not a good solution. So what we did was we kind of problem solved with our fabricator that did the first project that's from around here, and a very good partner of ours, somebody we do a lot of business with. And we got them to open up a little hole in their fabrication process and communicate with Twin Falls fabricator and say, we're going to take this chunk off your plate for you with their cooperation. And they were able to work it out pricing wise where they weren't taking advantage of the situation. The local felt okay about it, and they delivered the steel a week late, which we were able to pick that up later in the process. But from 8 weeks to 1 week, we felt it was a big success. It was going to be, we thought, an insurmountable challenge at first, but we found a really positive way through it. So,
Great.
So I qualify.
You bet.
Great, yes. How do you handle change orders?
What are change orders?
We don't do those.
People who change their mind a lot.
No, in all honesty, I mean, they're a necessary evil of construction. We acknowledge that, but it really starts with early on work, right? It's kind of like when you're painting, right? That your final, how good your paint's gonna look at the end, it's all based upon how good of prep work you do, right? Same thing with this project, right? It all comes down to the front end. How are we packaging? Like Anita talked about, how are we packaging the bid packages? How are the contracts tight? Have we made sure there's no gaps? Are we very clear on who's providing what, right? If we're hitting those marks, we're right off the bat taking a lot of opportunities for potential change orders to creep up, right? Another tool that we utilize early on to help for that is a risk register session. We kind of hit on a little bit in our RFQ response, and that's where we get together as a team and we talk about, hey, what are all the potential risks on the project? And we give them metrics. We score them on the probability if they happen, and then if they do happen, the severity, right? And they get a numeric score, right? So the higher the score, the higher the chance or the bigger the impact it can be. We try and plan for that, right? Mitigating measures to get rid of that, right? Which ultimately, if not handled, could lead to change orders. Ultimately, still, you can inevitably get some change orders. And at that point, it comes down to just the nuts and bolts, right? You got to log them, you got to verify them, you got to look at the contract. You need to bring the trade partner in. We have a duty and obligation to you folks to be good stewards of your money. At the same time, we have to honor contracts that are written, right, to our trade partners. And sometimes they're absolutely legitimate. But at that point, we come in, make sure we vet them. Is the scope correct? Is the pricing correct? Is it being fair, right? And then we can present them at that point.
I think it's important to distinguish the difference between change orders that have to be done and want to be done too, and flexible on that. Some of the things are maybe just a design miss that is something that absolutely has to be done, or the school's not going to work, and others are maybe something that you're looking at upgrading, and maybe that's something you want to look at the price before you decide whether you want to do it. So we understand kind of the sense of urgency and that process.
And can I ask you a quick question on that?
Sure.
So do you do, as you do the bid process, do you do add alternates throughout that?
So we certainly can, and Anita does this a lot as she goes through the budget process, and you get to, we get to a certain point in the design, and we say the budget is here, we'll add that budget, we had scaled something back or whatever. Maybe that's something you want to consider depending on how the bids go. So, we can put upgrades for an upgraded carpet or more cabinets or an added classroom or whatever that is into the bid documents when they get bid out. So that when the bids come back, you can say, okay, well, I don't have enough for that, but I do have enough for this. At the same time, it's a balance because you don't want to create a set of documents that has 25 bid alternates, because complicated ones. Because what that does is subcontractors are looking at this project to bid and that project to bid and this project to bid. And this one has 25 messy alternates and this one doesn't have any. That's where I'm going to spend my time. So you want to make sure you're not making it really tough on those guys to respond, because you want, in a busy market, you want as much coverage as you can possibly get to make sure you get the best price and the most bang for your buck.
Thank you.
Also, additive alternates are better than deductive alternates. You're never gonna get all your money back in the deductive.
Can you describe the difference? Because I'm not sure I understand.
So if you design the building and it's this room and you have a row of cabinets over there and a row of cabinets over there, but this one is a deductive alternate. The subcontractor truly is never going to give you all the money back on those cabinets
Gotcha.
there.
That's the way it seems to us anyways.
That's the way it seems. It feels like they forget to give back general conditions or fee or something. And we just don't feel you get as much bang for your buck.
Gotcha.
And then our whole job here is to protect every dollar, because bond dollars are hard fought. You want to make sure you're spending them correctly, so.
I like to take notes, so when I look down, I'm not ignoring you, I hear you. Please share architects that you've successfully worked with in the past.
So I would say we've successfully worked well with all the local architects. Some of the guys that we've worked with pretty frequently are Hummel Architects, LKB, CSHQA, Lombard Conrad, Cushing Terrell, Design West is one of your options as well. Schlichter Ugrin Architects. It's a long list, and we most of the work that we do is in this type of format, CMGC, where we're brought on, whether at the very beginning or at SD or somewhere along the way, where we have the chance to work collaboratively with the design team and the owner. So we get to know them pretty well. So we know all those guys really well. We think you've picked two great school architects to shortlist between LKB and Design West. They're both great and both do a great job. But I think we have a great relationship with all of them.
Is there anything your company does that other companies do not, and what sets you apart?
So I'll talk about a couple things here. So joint checks is one thing that we've done for 20 years. For all of our subcontractors, we joint check everybody. It's just something that, so a joint check is when they submit a pay application for $200,000 for the scope of work, but they've got suppliers that provided them work that went into that 200,000. So if ABC Mechanical has 200,000, he bought parts from XYZ Supply House and he rented equipment from United Rentals and whatever. They send us that information. They said United is owed this much money and ABC is owed this much money, which leaves this much for the mechanical contractor direct. So we issue joint checks where they each have to sign it before it gets issued.
Okay.
So what that avoids is us going down the road for 6 months and paying the subcontractor and finding out that they weren't paying a couple of suppliers, which nobody wants to think that that's going to happen or do it on purpose, but times can get tough and you just never know for sure. And so we've just created a policy for 20 years now, and we do it for everybody. Even our best partners, they understand it. They've come to like it. It actually makes some of their administrative functions a little bit easier. Once they get used to it, they're great with it. So We think that protects us and it protects our customer when it comes to,
Check and
liens things like
balance.
that.
Yeah.
It's a great check and balance.
Accountability.
So that's one thing. A couple other things, we call our VIQ process, it's vendor information qualification. So what that means is it's a 4-page document that we send out to subcontractors that they fill it out, and it gives us information on, who owns the company, who the company leadership or management is, how many people they employ, what does their backlog look like, how much work do they have going forward, what is their safety numbers and their safety record, OSHA violations, what do their financials look like, how long they've been in business, what is their volume the last 3 or 4 years. This doesn't inform us to say we're not going to use this person. What it does is informs us kind of where they're at. And we can look and say, well, you've got 5 million in backlog and you only did 2 million in the last 3 years. Are you sure this project is a fit for you? So we just kind of go into it eyes wide open. So we don't rule people out necessarily with this process, but we know a lot more about who we're doing business with and what they have going to make sure that they can be successful. So that's something we do company-wide as well. We self-perform earthwork and concrete, which we think is a game changer for schedule. Those 2 scopes set the tone for the project.
You said earthwork and what?
Concrete. So if you get your building pad built and your foundations in, that sets the stage for success on the rest of the project. And so we control those. We don't do it on every project, and we have to bid it in a CMGC format, but we like our chances when it comes to this. And we can help set the tone for the schedule. I think we're a safety leader that sets us apart from our competition in our community. We have a legacy ownership program, which is a key employee stock ownership program. It's a way of conveying ownership to key employees over many years so that we ensure that ESI is going to be doing business in 50 to 100 years. ESI Cares Foundation, we have a recycling program that funds our foundation and helps us, which we match, and helps us to donate to local communities. And we do that all the time throughout the year. And I guess the last thing would be just kind of generally the CMGC scope and the fact that we generally do more than anybody else. And I think we're better at the process, and we do a better job of protecting our customers because the stuff does become public record. And so you got to be careful with it, make sure that, a sour subcontractor doesn't find something you did wrong, and how that can kind of screw up the public image of a project. So we think it's important.
Great, thank you. Describe your budgeting planning process as well as how it is handled if there is a significant change.
So I'd start with that. So budgeting is going to start immediately. So the first thing that we would want to find out is, get everyone in a room and understand the wants and needs of this project. All with a goal of, with very little information coming from, the architect and a prescriptive set of plans, figuring out, what that total project cost is, using historic information, using job costs from projects we've bid before and such. So we can establish that initial budget early before we get subs involved or anything like that, just working with the architect, working with yourselves. And then as the architect, we go in, we just don't wait for the architect to issue us a set of plans, SD plans, DDs, whatever, 30% construction docs. We're in those meetings and we're listening to the decisions that they're making. So we're going to make a lot of assumptions to get to that initial plan set, but then we're going to start getting into the weeds more and more. What mechanical system are you going to be looking at? Is this a cross-shaped building? Is this a rectangle? Is it stucco on the skin? Is it something else? And so as we hear all those conversations happening, we will save down that first budget and start making changes to it initially so that there isn't a big surprise. When you figure out what mechanical system we're using, we know if it's up or down from where we were before. We have that conversation. We're not just waiting for those set of drawings, doing a budget, reacting negatively because the cost went up. It's a conversation going all the time. We've talked about bid packaging already a little bit as well, but making sure that we do have several subcontractors qualified to show up on bid day and bid that job. Like the best time to bid a project is when no other bid projects are going out. And ideally it's somewhere just after Christmas and between then and March, because that's when subcontractors are trying to fill their books again as well. So it's doing all of that, but it only works if we have good relationships with the subs in the first place. So just developing years and years of trust with them and being able to pick up the phone and make sure that they're interested in marking this job early. And then they want to help us. So they'll take a developing set of plans from us and say, let me look at that for you. And they'll help us just validate our budget. No cost, nothing else. We can't do that, but it helps them tee up to understand whether they're interested in this project going forward. So there's all these different layers of communication that's happening. And I have never ridden a roller coaster in my life. I am scared stiff of change. So I like to plan, over plan, and just keep checking it. Just all together, keep checking it. And I don't do it by myself. There's a team behind me. Myself and Chris will sit working together, and Nathan, and where he knows the schedule better than I do and logistics. And I guess you should let you talk for yourself. That would be good. But we work hand in hand through that whole process as well to hopefully get it right, Is there anything I missed, Chris?
So on the budgeting side, I really appreciate the fact that ESI involves the superintendent as early as they do. And I think there's a great value to the client served by that. Whether that's me being involved in, the bid packages and being able to put that knowledge from the boots on the ground into those bid packages and make sure that we've got everything covered, that we don't have any, duplication of efforts there. That's great. Also, in some of the other schools that we've done, having a superintendent involved in those neighborhood meetings and community meetings early on has served those projects really well as far as, the palatability from the community. So those are some great things. Also, when it comes to, a significant change, my job is to help identify those early on and help the team understand what the constraints are, right? Maybe it's a desired change that we want to add some electrical capacity to a room. It's my job to identify the need for that change or the want for that change and let the team know what that deadline is to make that decision to be able to continue to turn the building over on time with either decision made.
How do you process payments with the district throughout the building phase?
So, just so happen to have a graphic. And if you guys have our RFQ, so it kind of looks like this on page, I can't read that, 37. I should put my glasses on. So this kind of outlines how we typically handle a progress pay application. Ultimately, I'll preface this with it's flexible. It really is catered to each project, each customer's requirements. If you folks have a certain format or a program or an application or whatever that has to be done, that's where we start with, understanding that. But ultimately, in general, the process goes something like this. Subcontractors will submit a pay application to our team between our project manager and a position we call contract administrator, who kind of helps out on the admin side of contracts. Those two will look at it, verify it, vet it that it's correct. The PM will look at the scope. Hey, they're billing 50% complete for the painting. Are they truly 50% complete? Right? They'll go through and make sure we've got proper lien waivers, the unconditionals, the conditionals, kind of that Joe was talking about earlier with the joint checks, right? After we pay those folks, they have to provide conditionals saying, hey, we've been paid. So from an administrative and from a legal standpoint, they'll look at it. From an actual work in place standpoint, they'll look at it and verify that it's correct, complete. If it is, we'll log that into our pay application and come up with the February's draw, right? typically I try and have my PMs, we'll sit down with you folks before we submit the formal application, do kind of a pencil whip it, right? And look at it and say, hey, this is how we're seeing it. Do you folks see it the same way? You guys want to go walk the job and verify that it's painting's 50% complete or what have you? And we'll gain an understanding that, hey, this is generally correct, right? Then we'll submit the pay application to you folks. You'll route it through your team to process it, whomever has to touch it and sign off on it, et cetera, et cetera. And then, it eventually payment gets routed and it's logged on our side, and we'll provide you folks with all of our waivers and everything else, and the cycle repeats.
Can you describe how you have developed relationships with subcontractors and how you maintain those relationships?
So as we said earlier, ESI is in the Valley, 50 years. I'm here, 19 of those. And a lot of my time is spent with subcontractors and also architects and engineers. So they know who to call if there is an issue. They'll call me and they'll say, you didn't give me enough time to bid in this job or whatever it is. But like I said earlier, as soon as they understand that ESI is being awarded a project, they'll pick up the phone and they'll call their favorite point of contact here. It'll be known to ESI internally who's working on this or any other project, and they'll connect them accordingly. But again, the biggest thing with subcontractors is they know us. We use a lot of the same contracts on the different jobs. So they're used to our forms, our joint check process. There's a lot of similarities from job to job, whether it's a $60 million job, a $5 million or $100,000, it's the same level of detail. So they've got familiarity with that as well. And who we put as a superintendent on the site is very important too. Chris got a great reputation out there, and as soon as they know he's involved and he's looking at schedule and logistics and different things with us, then they'll find that comfortable as well too. But as I say, we're marketing early to the subcontractors. There's a prescriptive method that we follow. We'd be looking for certain names to make sure they show up in bid day for all of us. And if they're not there, we ask the question. So,
If I could add on to that, ESI has a core value of viewing subcontractors as valued trade partners. That's a saying that we use often amongst us, and really a core value that we bring to our relationships. And once our trade partners start to see that and feel that, the whole environment in which we deal business changes, and we're all working together to achieve a common goal. And with that comes, some preferred pricing, some added interest in our projects, based on ESI and the teams within it. And some of that preferential pricing, that is true even in other delivery methods, is enhanced in the CMGC delivery method. So definitely see benefits to that.
Please share what you look for when comparing potential sites for the building.
So what jumps to my mind is, for starters, when you look at a site, when you're comparing sites, you want to look at what the soil conditions are. What is the elevation of the soils? Are you going to have to take 4 feet of material out because it's not buildable, and bring in new material? That's expensive. Can you build on what's there? Are there utilities going through the site? Is there an irrigation lateral that runs through where you want the building to go? Because irrigation companies are, I won't say they're hard to deal with, but they take time. Some people might say they're hard to deal with, but really it just takes a lot of time. Power lines, is there power lines near the site? What's the infrastructure like on the site? Are you going to need a traffic signal nearby because of the added traffic that's going to be on the road? Those are all costs that are going to affect the viability of your school. Do you have to add a turn-in lane? Those are things that we look for is, what are the added costs besides just going and putting a school right there? And so we try to advise on that. And I know there's other factors that go into your decision on where to put a school, depending on your demographics and everything. And we can just give you the facts as we have them. You know, if we let Chris have an opinion, he would make sure that we've got truck traffic. In and out, and it's real easy to get in and out, there's no traffic. But we all know that's not always reality, so.
Really. Can you share price per square foot comparisons of several recent projects you've completed in terms of schools?
So I brought with me some ideas. So obviously there's 4 different examples that are in the package, but when we're analyzing costs, we break it down a little bit different. So the way I analyze the cost is on not just the total cost, but the cost per square foot of the site improvements and the building improvements, and then different metrics that skew those numbers as well. So when I look at, say, Pleasant View and Pierce Park, Rock Creek and Pillar Falls, they're all elementary schools we've put in here. And the building square feet, you know, varies from $52,000 square feet to 70,000 square feet. And then the site jumps from, you know, 275,000 square feet, to 550,000 square feet. So it all boils down into those metrics. But basically the site work can go in these ones. And the older projects were in that $4 to $5 a square foot for the site development. That's much higher now with where we are with escalation and just material changes and labor changes.
And that's site area, right?
That's just site.
That's not based on the buildings, but it's
The
based on the
development
site.
of the site. And then Pleasant View and Pierce Park, like one's about $7 and one's $10 a square foot. But the difference between them is that how they were developed. One site is twice as much square footage, so everything was more spread out. There's a lot more grass fields, different areas like that, that kind of soften that cost per square foot, where Pierce Park was pretty expensive at the time at $10 a square foot because it was all playground equipment and hardscapes. There was very little softscape. So, and then on the buildings, I'm probably putting you all to sleep right now, but this just floats my boat altogether. Rock Creek and Pillar went from 190 a square foot to 215 a square foot. And that's the nature of the use of the buildings that were in there as well. One had like a little bigger cafeteria and a little different plumbing requirements. Restrooms and kitchens are the most expensive. So that kind of explains what's happens there. But Pierce Park and Pleasant View went from 200 a square foot to 250 a square foot. And a lot of that was just the nature of the soils that were there and the structure that was put up in that location, and then the facade on that particular building. So, like I say, I'm probably putting us all to sleep right now. But what it really means is every building is different, every site is different, and there's all these different metrics we're always comparing to in the back of our head. As to, before we can start building, we're going to have a figure in our head that it's going to be around 220 to 250 a square foot. And if it's outside of that, then we're digging in deeper to understand why. Other projects we just don't do public elementary schools. We also have done charter schools and other private schools as well. And one program that we're working a lot with, we've done 3 schools with them in the last 3 to 4 years, with a 4th and 5th school being added to our list right now. They're very different, as in they've got small sites, they've got a pre-engineered metal structure and a steel stud structure. It's not CMU, comes together a little bit quicker. So it's a little more cost effective because of the nature of the structure of that. And also they get a lot of elements donated. The pre-engineered metal building is actually a donation from them. Their cafeteria equipment, their appliances are donations. So our hard costs of construction are a little bit different, but those buildings are all in the $6 to $8 a square foot to develop the site. And then the buildings are anywhere from like 200 to 250, depending what's donated versus what's not donated on those.
That's the Elevate program.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I could.
No, you didn't.
So we've worked a lot with them. And one thing that's happened in their latest school is costs have changed a lot, right? We all hear about it, labor, materials. And so every different school, they get different donations, but ultimately there's still a check that they have to write at the bottom end. So we have went through an extensive value engineering options for them. Like, we didn't just decide that the skin of the building should look like that. The architect gave us 5 different renderings, and we priced the 5 different renderings and gave them pro-con lists as to what would happen on this one versus this one. And it just isn't just like the initial cost, dollars and cents. You give them a painted building, well, you've got to maintain it later. So it's the maintenance, it's the life cycle costs, it's the longevity of the structure that we're going to turn over, so.
In your examples that you shared in the SOQ, there were, with the soft costs, there just weren't, you weren't speaking to the soft costs, and totally understand that. But from your experience, can you give an idea of what we'd be expecting on top of the $220 to $250 per square foot for those soft costs, kind of going rate?
Yeah. I mean, like for design services, you're gonna pay somewhere in the 6% range, 6 plus or minus % range for design services. Permitting can, varies, depending on whether you're in Boise, Meridian, Middleton, or otherwise. I couldn't quote better with that than me, but,
Well, and where that depends on that piece of land. So a lot of it depends on that piece of land. If you could end up with a $200,000 Idaho Power bill because there simply isn't the adequate power there. So that's where the soft costs start getting a little special. You can calculate a lot of the costs, like, the sewer and everything, once the square footage. A lot of it's based on the square footage of the building, the square footage of the land, and the total cost of the building. And it's all stuff that we've ran. I think I had that sample there where it's actually BSU Fine Arts. I ran their whole pro forma for them. So when it comes to district school buildings, we're not given that information, and I don't want to, I can go find some of it, but it's not going to be totally right. So I didn't want to give something that was wrong. But there's definitely ways we can help with all of that. But a lot of it boils down to costs of the land's always the big one. So if it's donated, you're dollars ahead there. But on the hard cost of construction, you could, depending on the site, be adding anywhere from 50 to 30%, and 15 to 30% of the top.
And if I can add one thing too, is also early on understanding what's the breakdown for your FF&E, your furniture, fixtures, and equipment, right? Are we providing the kitchen equipment, or are you folks? Are you providing the AV projectors, or are we, right? Is it who's buying those chairs, right? Understanding and establishing that early on, because depending upon your taste and everything else, the sky's the limit, or it's IKEA, so it's whatever kind of you want.
One of the tools we use to make sure all the costs are accounted for, because let's be honest, there's a bottom line on this, and is developing, the high level budget and just making sure somebody's responsible for developing those costs. And then, you look at that one sample, it just says FF&E on it. Well, there's an FF&E template that supports the back of that says chairs, toilet roll holders, projection screens, flagpole.
Right.
And then for us, it's designed with the, who's designing it, who's supplying it, and who's installing it, because they're all different little buckets. But it's a whole process that is absolutely makes me happy. But there's a lot of spreadsheets, but there's ways and means, and we have definitely done it before, carried all the costs of construction. But I'd love to give you a hard number, but.
Well, and I understand getting a hard number is because every site and every design and all of that's just going to be different. Just wondering if you do a lot of building, and if just what you're seeing, just so that we can start looking at that ideas of what that total cost is going to be.
Yeah. Right.
So, but what you've shared is great. So thank you.
Yeah. I just had a quick follow-up, because you had these examples you referred to quite a bit, but I didn't see the dates. Maybe I missed it when these were built.
So here's another one here. So if you're looking at this document here, is it 20?
He's looking at.
Inside the.
Oh,
Yeah,
those,
like the
oh, I've got
Pierce-
those as
the-
well.
Pierce Park Elementary School, and I
So
just,
they're older, so they're,
2020? Park?
Pierce, yeah, sorry, Pierce Park's by 2020 and 2021. And then, the Twin Falls schools are further back, they're, yes.
like the Pleasant View,
Pleasant View was probably 1920.
okay, because that, yeah,
Well,
really makes it relevant for figuring out costs.
yeah,
It's gone up so much.
yeah,
the
there's
last
some
couple of years.
escalation for sure.
Right, thank you.
And this may be a silly question because I'm just trying to put all this information together, but site, when you're analyzing the site per square footage and the buildings, at the end, do you add that all into one big square footage price?
So you can, people do it different ways. I mean, you can look at the overall project cost and divide it by your building square footage. It just all depends on what you're comparing against. If you're gonna look at 5 projects, you just have to make sure you're doing it the same way.
Okay.
We typically look at, what is the building by itself? That's $200 a square foot. And then the site is $5 a foot based on site square footage. And if you add them together and divide by your building, it's a different number. So people do it different ways. It's just important that if you're comparing, you're doing it apples to apples, right?
And that was the reason for the question, because
Yeah.
some of the other projects that we've had have the
All
whole
site,
thing
right.
in there. And so wanted to make sure that when we look at those numbers, we're talking about the same.
Yeah.
And the numbers I need to reference, like on Elevate, the charter school stuff, that's way more recent. So their level of finish and things is not as substantial as like Pierce Park and Pleasant View, but they're much newer, so you can see the cost is similar, but they got a little less for the money just because of the timing when that was actually built.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks. Please describe your familiarity and experience working with Canyon County Services.
So I just did some quick checking, and we've done over 50 projects in Canyon County in the last 18 to 24 months. But I was wondering if you could be a little more specific on which services. I mean, we're very familiar working in Canyon County, done a lot of projects there. Was there anything in particular that you wanted to address?
I would say it's more just getting a feel for how much you've worked with
Okay.
Canyon County and that this is something that you're familiar with. You're not going to be creating new relationships.
The nuances of handling, inspectors and
Right.
POs, their personalities. I've never been a builder, by the way, just so you
That is
know.
general,
With 50 projects in 2 years, I don't think you have an issue.
So you've worked with them.
Yeah.
Okay. Describe how a typical weekly meeting would go, who would be involved, and how you would address the project schedule during those meetings.
So we read that, we figured there must be a typo because it said meeting singular, not plural. So, look, we're as CMGC, our duty to you folks is to communicate, right? If we look at it as a wheel, I'm a big analogy guy. So we have to be that hub in that wheel, right? And everything comes through us, and we've got to push that information out to everybody. So if we're not communicating with you folks and really our teams, we're not doing our job. So we have, multiple meetings every week, right? The one that we'll see you folks the most on is our weekly OAC meeting, right? Owner, architect, contractor. We'll sit down, go over everything that's pertinent to the job. We'll touch budget, we'll touch pay applications, we'll touch schedule, we'll touch site logistics, safety, inspections, anything, the team will come together early on and figure out, hey, what do we want to talk about in these meetings? We'll figure out the cadence. Oh, it's Tuesdays at 1, whatever it is. We'll figure out who needs to attend, who doesn't need to attend. And we'll keep track of those minutes. We'll push them out as a team and share them with everybody, and we'll use those on a week-to-week basis. That's just one of the meetings we'll have other meetings to go over pay applications like we talked about. Maybe to go over change orders, maybe to go over, upcoming, changes to the site that need to be pushed out. We'll talk about, maybe there's a big, part of your FF&E delivery that's coming in. Hey, we've got the chairs are being delivered. How are we going to, so, there's going to be multiple meetings, and it's our job to really schedule those, track those, figure out who needs to attend, and make sure the information gets disseminated out. Chris, you want to talk a little bit about kind of schedule and how you handle that in those meetings?
Yeah, thanks. To this point, we would have really two major meetings each week involving schedule. And they would be the upstream, in which we would communicate to you guys as our client, and then the downstream, in which we would communicate to our trade partners. A couple things that we do that I think are a little different from our industry that offer a huge value to our client are, back to value trade partners. When we start our scheduling process, we're going to bring everybody in and we're going to do what's called a pool planning meeting, right? And what that is we set a goal. We need to turn the school over on, this date. And what do you guys need from us to get there, right? So it's this joint team effort, and everybody tells us what they need and what they need for durations of work. We put that into our schedule, develop that into our master schedule. It's, that we develop during pre-construction. And then in our weekly meetings with our subcontractors, it's holding those guys accountable. So we're not telling them, hey, we need you to be done with drywall in 2 weeks. We're saying, hey, when we got together, you told us you could be done with drywall in 4 weeks. And we're 2 weeks into it, and you look a little short. What can we do to help you meet this, deadline that's coming up in 2 weeks? And then as we filter that upstream, a couple of things that I feel that we do better than I've seen other people do is sometimes you will see a master schedule for a project, and then you'll have a meeting with your CMGC team, and they'll have a handwritten short interval schedule. And pretty common in our industry, and it's a great way to manage. What we do that I feel is better than that is that we integrate that level of detail into our master schedule. So instead of you looking at a schedule that says steel erection will take 4 weeks, and then a superintendent sitting in that meeting or myself sitting in that meeting and telling you, hey, we're installing steel in section A right now. We would have that broken out into those specific work activities and that level of detail for you guys to see. And then, on a public works job, that would also be public knowledge. So that transparency to both yourselves and the community.
One thing Chris said that I forgot to mention too is that schedule doesn't just start once we get into construction. It'll start from day one, right? We'll create that pre-construction schedule. It'll have everything that needs to happen from day one till Chris shows up on site and puts shovels on the ground, right? So all the design milestones, hey, we got to submit for design review. We got to submit for building department. Hey, the geotech's got to be out there to get soil samples. We need that by X. Like all that will be enumerated out there, and we'll be helping to manage and lead the team really on the front end of all pre-construction, which Chris isn't going to want to hear me say this, but that I think is the hardest part now. It feels like the building is actually the easiest end part of it.
And the schedule, sorry.
Go ahead. Nope.
I was gonna say the schedule is part of our bid document. So one thing I haven't flashed in front of you yet is this lovely binder. What this is the bidding manual and the information we give the subcontractors to actually bid this job. Now, we can't say prescriptively, I need you here on this date, during construction, but we'll have worked together as a team to figure out a milestone schedule here that basically says the roof goes on here, the elevator's in here, just high level, so there's no surprises. When they're bidding the project, that it's a surprise we're looking for, this schedule to be met. But then when the bids come in, we make recommendations, you accept them as a board, we get those subcontractors and trade partners in the door, and Chris is gonna take the more detailed schedule that we just developed these milestones with and actually clean it up to the next level with the actual subs that are going to be doing the work. So I'll give you this. This is, like I say, a sample of our bid package that goes out. It's very rare I hit print on it because it's an electronic document. And they, download it and look at it accordingly. But take a look, see if there's any questions on it.
And then do you come to the board meetings and give us an update?
So I was gonna actually add to some of the bond discussion we had earlier, that we're very accustomed to presenting to school boards, town halls, city councils, whatever support you need there. If we need to tell a story on what the schedule's gonna look like, or tell a story on the budget or whatever, we're accustomed to giving those types of presentations, whether it's once at the beginning and once at the end, or on some sort of monthly cadence, something we're used to.
What do you see as strong cost-saving opportunities in the school construction process?
So I'll take this one. So really, it's getting the group in the room and understanding what your wants and needs are right now. Right now, I haven't seen a program. I don't know how many classrooms. In talking to Mark previously, let's look at a rectangle shaped building and what's the pro cons for those. Being in this early and working with a designer this early, and as ideas comes up, we don't need a full design to be able to give you pricing so you can make a decision as to how to spend the bond dollars. So let's have all those discussions, and then we pull aside analysis as simple as in the restroom, do we want tile on every wall, or we just want to do it on the wet walls? Let me give you that information so and you know what the risk is, and you know what the maintenance is and everything else going forward. So you're informed and you make these decisions. And that keeps the architect and the design team happy, because they don't want to keep designing and design to a point that they're so pregnant with the design to make a change, it's going to take more costs or more time. So being able to have the different groups in the same meetings, having these, clean conversations, we all trust each other, letting us go back or give some idea of cost or schedule impact in that room so we can make a decision and move on. So back to the cost saving opportunities, just understanding a typical, I think I mentioned this earlier, a typical elementary school is CMU with joist and deck and steel columns and a membrane roof. What's to say that's what you honestly need for this one? Can we look at a different structure, a different floor plan, and see and price it accordingly, and understand that CMU takes longer to build than a stucco skinned facade? So having those early conversations, but also it depends on how much that'll determine how much these are going to go to bond for as well. So these are very important questions. And how long do you want this school? Is it a 50-year school, a 100-year school? Let's have all those honest conversations very early on to make decisions.
And then what I would say is coverage when it comes bid time, is making sure that you get good coverage when it comes time, and you don't end up with a major package with just one bid. Having 4 or 5 bidders, you've got the best price that the market will bear. So that's the other cost savings opportunity, if you will, is making sure you're getting the best price in the market.
CMU.
Oh, sorry.
Construction management.
Block, concrete masonry units.
Okay.
So block.
We're big on acronyms.
No, that's
I
okay.
apologize.
She was in special education, so is she, because there's a ton there.
And that's
trying to put things together with the content of what you're talking about.
I'm
and I just
sorry.
didn't- No, that's fine.
Well, from our point, that's really what we're looking at, because, economy goes up and down. So that's a big impact. We're in areas and we've tried to pass some bonds before. Everybody in the community sees needs for what we need, but we also want to make sure that we're addressing and controlling that money very carefully, because there's that expectation that, we don't need something, the Taj Mahal, but I don't want to build something that's going to fall apart in 3 months, right? I mean, I can get $1 a square foot flooring from Home Depot and it'll last about an hour and a half with kids on it, right? Or, so what is that? And then even beyond that, something like polished concrete, is that a good solution? Well, yeah, it's a really affordable solution, but is that a good solution for kids as they wipe out in the snow and crack their head up? Should we go with this? What's going to last the longest? What's the best bang for our buck?
Right.
Because it's not necessarily about buying the cheapest, it's about justifying the usage of money. We're clearly not gonna put granite on the countertops, but I don't want, Silestone either, right? I mean, we just got to find that balance, and that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Figure out what can we do to get the best bang for a buck longevity wise, making sure that our patrons understand that we're trying to manage that money as carefully as we can.
And flooring's, pretty easy conversation, because we're not gonna have those drawings developed. So we're gonna put together a finished schedule and say, we assumed we're doing this in this room and this in the other room, and then everyone gets together and say, because the architect's not gonna have it designed as quickly as we need it, so we will make assumptions. But yeah, we have put epoxy in rooms. Would you put them in all rooms? No, probably not, because of acoustics and slips and trips and different things, but it's giving you those options, and you understand the risk, and the architect saying, this is what I think, so you can make an informed decision and, move on from there.
What you're after is, finding that right balance, and you've got a couple, whichever architect you choose, you've got two lead architects there. They're gonna come to you and say, here's a bunch of different solutions for whatever the product is that we've seen in other schools. And they're gonna be the gamut of high to low. We might have something else that they don't think is a great idea, but we're probably gonna bring it up anyways. We're gonna give you our view on the pros and cons of it, which is, I think, why you want us here to some extent, because two heads are better than one, so I think you're gonna have the best of both worlds there, with a lot of smart people in the room that know about cost and durability and life cycle to really help you make informed decisions.
And exactly, that's what I was just gonna say, so we can hear all of it and make a good informed decision. I don't know if this last question,
They've kind of been answering
you've
it.
kind of been answering it, but you do help, it sounds like you do and will come to help with what to share with the community in a town hall.
Right.
It sounds even like your subcontractors may even be a good part of that.
Yeah, they would definitely be kind of in the background helping us they have to be careful on getting too involved because they have to go through the bid process later. But they'll help us in the background on square foot costs and products and what's happening now, what pricing is going up or down and things like that. We need that info from them. So when I saw this question and thought about it, I started my career building for Micron a couple of years ago. And one of the things they challenged us with in the pre-con phase was life cycle costing. So every decision that came up about something that they were going to build there, it was, okay, what's the life cycle cost, whether it's a mechanical system or whatever. So you got 4 different systems. And you got first cost, maintenance cost, replacement costs, and how that's handled on a present value and future value. And so that has kind of informed how our estimating has gone forward, is you have to not just consider the first cost of a product, is how long is it going to last, and what's the maintenance of it. And that's kind of how I viewed this. And that's something we're accustomed to doing, and it's something that we can help explain to your stakeholders as well.
Everybody's good?
Do you guys have any other questions?
Can we start over? I got your.
That'll be a no. Thanks
We
for coming,
believe
though.
it's recorded.
It is. You can watch the video.
I was just gonna say that I had no doubt that you guys would build a wonderful elementary school. It just makes it tough trying to have to choose between Petersburg and so I appreciate your guys' time.
Yes, I appreciate you coming.
Yes.
Of course.
And so we'll be going over with our architect interviews this afternoon. There might be a little discussion after that, but then the decision we made in our regular board meeting on Monday.
Okay.
So there'll be
You can watch the video if you want.
and you're welcome to come at that open meeting, but that's when the decision will be made.
Okay.
We appreciate you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes,
you bet.
Appreciate it.
And as you leave, you can actually go right out that door, goes out to the parking areas.
You need this back?
Yeah,
Or is this-
it's,
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm glad I ate that.
Thank you so much. Yeah.